Hello, everyone. Welcome to Animator's Breakfast, which is a podcast where we talk about inspiration with people who work in the animation industry. And today, I've got a real treat. He might not think so, but I've got Eimhin Mc Namara here, who has been working in the animation industry for
a
decade. Really?
Yeah, well, more like 13 years now.
Now, is this true, Evan? Did you design the logo for the Animation Ireland, the awards, didn't you?
I didn't do the logo, but so Animation Ireland are a producer-led organisation that helps to field Irish projects at overseas kind of pitch fests and this kind of thing. So it's a kind of representative kind of agency almost. But I was approached by Animation Ireland as part of their inaugural like I can't even remember how they phrased the first one, but it's basically in Dingle. They were hoping to kick off a industry awards system. Yeah. So that was something that we necessarily didn't have in Ireland. There was like film festivals that recognised films or say sometimes a TV series or writing, let's say, and directing, but not necessarily art direction, animation specific things like actual animation, like best animated scene. So they approached me to design the trophy for the award show itself. Yeah.
And you unabashedly put in your love for dogs.
The logo was already a dog.
It was already a dog, yeah. So it just felt natural.
Well, it was kind of a little thing I'd been working on before as well. Just as like a little pet project I was doing, like illustration.
No pun intended.
It's hard to avoid them, really. But I was doing a little animated loop that I was going to build as a thaumatrope or a phenakistoscope. Wow. So the more drawings you get, the more complicated it gets. So it ended up being a phenakistoscope, which is what the awards trophy ended up being as well. So it was like a disc that you'd spin, and it had a little viewfinder on it that you'd
see the dog.
If you syncopate, your eye blinks in time. Normally they'd have a strobe for those kind of things.
Okay,
So that's what I did. That was like 2014.
Wow.
I think that was.
It's mad how recent it is, isn't it?
Like, and how long ago it is.
Yeah, also at the same time, at the exact same time. How close yet so far.
Yeah, and just at this year's animation awards, like Irish Animation Awards, we brought home, I think it was 3 awards.
Yeah,
I think so.
How does it feel seeing your babies come back, essentially?
It was nice.
Yeah.
One of them has my name in it, and another one, well, like one of them we won for Best Company with Paper Panther, which I founded with Carol Freeman and Padraig Fagan. So then Carol won for Bird and the Whale as well, and we won one for Best Animation in Bird and the Whale, and then we also won one for Best Newcomer as a company.
Wow, yeah. But I hadn't heard of Paper Panther up until I'd say about maybe a year and a half ago. I don't know how long you guys have been around, but I'm so fascinated by the second I heard about you guys and I saw your work, I was just blown away by the creativity involved. And I remember when I was reading on your website ages ago, I think it said something like an animation, that you're trying to bring this, these old forms of creativity back with digital tools.
Well, maybe one reason why you maybe hadn't heard of us is we're a bit backwards. So I'm not sure how much of an animation renaissance it is, but more that we don't have, say, the budgets to work at the full scale to compete with studios like Brown Bag or Boulder or those ones that are now like 100+ employees.
Huge.
And they're largely following pipelines developed in the States. Boulder, well, they're getting to more 3D stuff, and Brown Bag are more 3D in general, but largely they'd all been piloted via like American or Canadian production methods.
9-story and
exactly. And even like there's a couple of like Vancouver-based operations like Mercury Filmworks that have a very kind of regimental, what would you call it, like 2D system of production it's very like bang, 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 bang. And they really got it down to a fine art, which helps keep budgets down, make sure they can do things, of course. But it's very like cost sensible. Alternatively, the way we do things, like our projects are kind of narratively traditional.
Yes.
But
experimental in luck.
In technique, Okay. When it actually came to making On Guard Dove, we incorporated all the things the park maybe wanted to do with Rooster, but we couldn't physically.
I think it's the only way to learn as well. Like each iteration is kind of you've constantly improved your craft, and if you're not bringing that forward with you, then have you reached kind of a peak of where you are, or are you still learning?
Plateau, the famous plateau.
The famous
like
plateau.
There's one thing to consider is that we're kind of, with each project, we kind of will stretch things a little bit more and we'll try things that we haven't tried before.
Yeah.
We did a Dulux ad a few years back. Carol,
a really beautiful ad.
Thanks.
Really.
Carol really sweated over it for many weeks. But we got in for that just because of time constraints, and I was already committed to another project. I'd largely be the person to do the technical stuff, or at least to figure out the technical stuff.
Okay.
So I really only had time to do like kind of producing jobs on that in terms of sourcing parts, labor, and making sure things are kind of available, like in terms of shooting space and all this kind of stuff. It's kind of tricky to quantify how long stuff will take, but when you're just under pressure, you just have to throw so many people at things. It's not very efficient, in terms of
I'm just visualizing people being thrown against puppets.
Yeah, we had like 20 people working on that.
Wow. But it looks so good though. We're here to talk about something that you popped up, a show that inspired you, and I'm going to imagine I'm pronouncing this wrong, but I think it's Pojd'te Pane.
Pojd'te Pane, yeah.
Pojd'te Pane.
I have the full name here that I always forget.
Budeme, hrát.
Budeme, hrát, yeah.
I
hey,
thought that was
Mr. Let's Play.
Yeah, it's Hey, Mr. Let's Play. Tell us a bit about it there.
And so it was based on a short film called Pojd'te Pane, which is how we met in Cologne.
Yeah.
It was made by Bretislav Pojar, who's a Czech animator, writer, director. He also worked in education a lot as well. But he got started with E03, who's like this behemoth in...
They call him the Disney of the
Czech Republic.
Yeah, of the Czech Republic,
or Czechoslovakia as it was then. But, and it was like Prague Films, or Prague Films, was Trinka Films, alternatively.
Yeah, whatever.
So he got started working with... Trinka. And the interesting thing about Trinka is he's best known for his stop motion work, but he also worked in 2D. He worked in basically anything that was going. And Bretislav work kind of reflects that too. So he did a really interesting film on it's like the Perception called E.
Okay.
And it's almost like a film about propaganda. There was lots of problems that Trinka and Bretislav had with like Soviet control.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And the Czech Republic and like Czechoslovakia was seen as a little bit of a vassal state.
Yeah.
So they did not have the same level of freedoms, let's say, that the Yuri Norsteins or like Tatarskis would have had in Russia, even though that was largely because they were dismissed. But in the Czechoslovakia, they were seen as like dissidents for making animation,
which is crazy because there's such an incredible school that came out of the Czechoslovakia. I was going to say Czech Republic, but just all their work, people like obviously Bretislav Pojar, Jan Svankmajer, all their kind of work is really, really beautiful and so intricate as well, but always with a little bit of cynicism in there,
Yeah, I mean, Svankmajer very much like cynical.
Yeah.
Trinka, I think he had a great love for stories.
Yes, yeah.
But he was very bitter as well. Okay. So there's kind of a mixture of warmth and like Bretislav, he was just such, like, his stuff is just really nice and playful.
Yes.
And even when it's more, say, serious in tone, there was a sense of like life in his work.
Yeah.
And kind of it was more maybe like he was a bit more sardonic than cynical.
Okay.
If you know what I mean. But with Hey Mr. Let's Play, it was like 1965, I think it was. Well, he had worked with puppet films with Yuri Trinka.
Yeah.
And he'd done some 2D projects as well, cell animation and like cutout on paper projects. But this was an interesting kind of genesis of working in puppet and working in cutout as well as 2D.
Yeah. Because
he had learned how to animate on paper.
Yeah.
He knew about plasticity of form and expressions of design as well.
Yeah.
That if someone was just, say, a puppet animator or puppet film director, there's a tendency for the characters to look more like dolls than, say, designed characters. Just because they're too conscious of the
space, is it? Is
Well,
that what you mean? Like the kind of 3D space?
A little bit, but also the methods of production.
Okay.
So they know that, it has to be done like this because this is the way it's done in puppet film. While Bretislav, he worked a little bit more freely and allowed them to be a bit clever with things as well.
Yeah.
So, hey, Mr. Let's Play used and incorporated elements of things he'd learned in puppet design and like puppet animation and direction, along with 2D and cutout elements.
Yeah.
So there's a really tactile sense of the characters, and as they work through the world, there's a sense of space that you get with like Puppet World.
Yeah.
Kind of art direction and stuff. But there's also a sense of like the characters themselves literally transform.
Yes.
Through the whole thing. Yeah.
Into everything.
Crazy. Yeah.
Trains, clocks, camels, horses, cars, boats. They just go for it. Yeah.
But there's a certain sense of mystery, I guess, that you get with more cutout styled projects where you're leaving a little bit up to the imagination of the audience.
Yeah.
While in stop motion and like puppet animation, you have to be a bit more explicit because otherwise the camera doesn't work, or in terms of the actual world falls apart a little bit.
Yeah.
While the methods of doing a cutout film is that it's all like hanging by a string anyways, and as soon as you drift the camera left or right, it all just stops making sense. So I think he kind of incorporated that a little bit into his visual style as well. But the characterization then is still really solid, and he's quite clever as well because like I have a book. Actually, probably should have brought it in. But I have a little booklet that I got in Annecy in France years back.
Yeah.
I don't even know how many editions were printed, but it's just like a small little limited edition thing. And it has photographs of the puppets from Pojd'te Pane.
Yeah.
And they're like that size. They're huge.
Wow.
You would never think, like, it was just...
By the way, I'm going to give a reference. Imagine like a water bottle in length because they can't see.
It is a visual medium though, isn't it? It's like, they were like about 18 inches or so tall.
Wow.
But bearing in mind their proportions are much chunkier than like the, the Corpse Bride or like the Nightmare Before Christmas puppets, which are all legs or arms.
Or arms,
so these are just big, juicy puppets that are made of like soft felt.
I love your description of things. Delicious, juicy.
I'm just very hungry right now. But so there was a nice thing that they could do because of the way they've constructed the puppets. They're kind of segmented.
Yeah.
But they are designed in such a way that the segments just overlap.
Yeah.
They're not worried too much about hiding the seams. But the puppets' arms themselves are substituted a little bit.
Yeah.
But mostly they're just made of a flexible material wrapped in like fabric.
Yeah.
So it's probably a mixture of like, it could be like balled up tinfoil and with some wire, or it could be anything really at all that was lying around in a Soviet workshop in the 60s. Plutonium or depleted uranium, which is very brittle actually.
It sounds like you've worked with it before.
That's the one thing about stop motion. Like the ingredients are often a little bit more like toxic.
Radioactive,
It's the hazards of the trade. But there was another thing they did as well, whereby the features of the head. So you had this big ball shape for the head.
Yes.
Which, and the two characters are very similar, but they're different proportions, and
you can tell them apart very easily.
The characterization does that an awful lot.
Yeah.
It's often like a, you can see in some animations when they've really fallen by the wayside in terms of characterization.
Yeah.
If they're already self-limiting by the sense the characters all look alike, but then they all behave the same as well.
Yeah.
When really what they use for the two characters in Pojd'te Pane, they use their similarities to offset how differently they behave in terms of their visual similarities. Like you have a lot in like some of the less considered like anime where they more or less are all very similar, only they have different haircuts.
Yeah. Different color as well.
Yeah, I mean maybe the voice direction is different in terms of the actors that provide the voice, but largely they move all the same. But the characterization of the movement and also the voice acting is quite different in Pojd'te Pane. And it's much more cartoonish and broad as well, so it helps.
And I've got to say, even because looking at his other work, Bretislav Pojar's like other work, the way his, I was going to say creatures, the way his characters move is just, it's so imbued with life that you just can't help but immediately empathize with them. I don't know what it is. I I can't remember. I think it's called A Drop Too Much in
Oh,
English.
yeah.
I
It's
can't
a PSA on drinking too much.
Yeah, but it's so like you just like the puppet's expressions don't change.
Yeah.
But it's so expressive the whole way through.
And it's quite theatrical as well as a film. I mean, there's one thing that Trinka, from his school of like design, like Trinka did beautiful illustrations for books. I have like a folder with a bunch of his illustrations.
Thanks for bringing that as well.
It's a digital folder. We're not quite in the dark ages, but also his stuff is really expensive if you're trying to buy any original, and even any like original children's books that he illustrated, they're all so expensive.
Really, yeah.
He had a real nice way of approaching puppet design.
Yeah.
In terms of his 3D puppets, like the Czech fairy tales series he did, where he knew that they wouldn't have the resources to do lots of like head substitutions. Like say the George Powell side of things, who did a lot of very problematic racist stereotype cartoons in America before he went on to do like the amazing Tom Tom and worked more in special effects.
Yeah.
But Trinka, he approached it more with a really sense of strong design. He knew that, say, if you had a neutral expression on the puppet straight on, and because of the roundness of the face, you tilt that down, the puppet's smiling. You tilt it up, the puppet's frowning.
Yeah.
So just with that minimum amount of articulation of the head, you can kind of imply at least a level of emotional shift and transition.
Yeah.
So definitely Bretislav would have picked up all of these stuff. He was like a big sponge.
And animated them as well.
And then animated them. The characters themselves are very spongy, but he had a little bit more flexibility with the Pojd'te Pane stuff because it was flat. It was on glass. He shot it.
Yeah.
The characters themselves were just lying flat, so they could jump up and down really easily. He didn't have to worry about like getting rid of wires or trying to shoot with like fishing line. Yeah. Because traditionally, the whole wire removal and wire rig removal thing, that's a very modern like fallacy. Previously, they just didn't have a choice. They just either left it in or tried to photograph it as much as they can to make it invisible. Because they were shooting on film.
Fishing wire, translucence.
Exactly. So shooting on glass, it meant he didn't have to worry about that. The characters could move around. They could jump about. He didn't have to worry about the characters having to physically stand up and hold their own weight. So for that part, he could have like lots of parts he could swap in and out. So he had muzzles that were different. But the head would be the same. And it was literally just he had some pins from the muzzle that he would just stick into this round felt kind of hemisphere. And so by that he could have the muzzle position, say, in the front, middle, and it would look like the puppet's facing forward. But then you could also have like a sliced through version of the muzzle where it was stuck on the side and it would look like the puppet was facing left or right. And by that capacity, he could have really fine-tuned control on like head turns, and he could be very very sophisticated if he needed to be, or he could also use it for transformations, like with the train transformation. That's like, I think it's the first thing that happens in Pojd'te Pane. But it was a really nice and interesting mix of things being animated in a more fluid way than really you'd be used to seeing. I mean, you'd have maybe a little bit of, if you would have seen like the Sledgehammer music video that Aardman did, or some of Aardman's earlier stuff, where there's a bit more kind of morphing or experimental quality. Before, like not that they're visually conservative, but just the types of films that they tell are kind of, they're traditional films. And often the more experimental or fluid visuals don't really match up with the world they're making, because they're kind of making this twee kind of world that's a little bit kind of stiff and upper, stiff upper lip kind of thing. But it was kind of very eye-opening when I first saw that. And around the same time, I saw the Polish production of The Moomins. From, I think that was 73?
It's 77 to 82.
Yeah, 77 to 82. You're dead right. And that was produced by Semaphore and Jupiter Films. And they utilize kind of similar methods, only the stories make a bit more sense, if you know what I mean. Like in terms of like the Pojd'te Pane stuff is literally,
it's just sheer fantasy.
There's like a compilation of them, and I think there's like 12.
So there's 2 seasons.
Yeah, there's like 6 per.
6 and then 5. And the first 6 were done between 1965 to 67, I think.
Yeah.
And then he returned to them after, I think he went and, because he was always working.
Yeah.
He's just constantly.
He did productions with the National Film Board of Canada as well.
Yeah, which is a really good resource actually to see a lot of his later work. If anyone wants to check it out. The National Film Board of Canada stuff. Like they actually have a lot of his work still there.
And I think he won.
He won the first Grand Prix in Annecy.
Yeah, with the line of the song.
Yeah, which is again,
it's gorgeous.
It's so beautiful. Yeah,
and it's really simple, kind of parable kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is very parable, isn't it? No dialogue at all, but it's just so imbued with life, and that's something. Because you know the scene where it's just kind of across the sand dunes, the camera tracks, and then the guy with the accordion appears.
He just walks in,
yeah. But there's so much life in how he's walking and how he's carrying himself. That was early enough in Bretislav's solo career.
I think that was like 65 or something like that.
Was it? Yeah. It's something very early. But you can just still feel that life. Then it's funny, you were talking about perspective there.
Yeah.
In Pojd'te Pane. And I've got to say, I remember they're playing pool.
Yeah.
But the pool table is just so crazily in perspective.
Big flop, yeah.
It's like one edge you can see the back end of the table perfectly to see where the ball is going to go, and the front is like our perspective of how we think we'd see the table. But it's balanced so well against the kind of flat plane. It's just, again, it's so beautiful. It is really, I really appreciate it. I was so happy to see it because I'd not seen it. I'd seen some of his work before, but not Pojd'te Pane, you know.
It's kind of a strange beast because it's like he did another one kind of in a similar technique, but visually quite different. It was called like The Elephant. I forgot now, but it basically had like, it was about like these kids that went on a little kind of adventure. And so it was a little bit of a similar tone from the beginning in terms of it's an adventure or it's kind of this flight of fancy. But the characters themselves are all hard, so they're not like soft. And they're not super pliable, but then they more or less have bendy arms with partially
thankfully
articulated bodies and stuff like that. But it's still like flat on glass. So it's a little bit more like, there's a bit less left to the imagination as such. But it's still really nice production design. But it's just maybe not as charming or not as crazy as Pojd'te Pane.
Which is crazy and charming. It really, really is. I had a point there, but I've forgotten it now. Pojd'te Pane is actually about, it's 2 bears essentially. Just living their life. Like one's kind of a bit taller, bit smarter, more
bit of a jerk.
Bit of a jerk, I was going to say. And one's just small and sweet. And it really exemplifies it. You know that episode where he catches a fish and the other one tricks him into thinking it's a princess he's caught. Just so he can get the fish so he can eat it. And it's just amazing the kind of transformations they do. It like turns him into a knight and the bigger bear turns into a horse then and they go attack a castle full of dogs. Where does this come from?
But even within the series themselves, they did like some straight kind of weird things, like with the bit. I think there's a bit. I think it's Potkaliseo Kalina where they do a little kind of story within it where a guy hunts a bear and then he makes a bearskin rug.
Oh yeah, because
because he's warning them against something.
And they're like, because unfortunately I can't understand Czech, and it's all the narrations in Czech, and it's supposed to be really witty as well. I wish I could.
It sounds very sharp. I fully believe.
But I just don't understand it. But I love the idea that they communicate with each other through 2-dimensional animation. That's like how they show their thoughts and ideas. And the bearskin rug, and then the bear gets out of control, so they have to draw more and more things, like a guy with a gun. It doesn't work.
To get rid of him.
So they put him in a car to get rid of him, and just these flights of fancy. Or when they go to hibernate and then they wake up and they share each other their dreams through, they turn into a projector and basically film their dreams. And then they have an argument, like they get married and they have an argument over who would be the groom. But then it turns out they both have partners anyways. And then they have kids and they just have to do the laundry themselves. It's just so, and that could be within 5 minutes.
Very, very quickly.
Just so condensed, but so beautiful. And I can see that's where the charm is, because you just kind of let go. I think a film critic said that, I can't remember which one. Actually, I have her name here. Katerina, I'm going to butcher this, Bosova or something. She said that he speaks the same language to children and adults, and that's kind of where his success comes in.
There's no double talk like
Exactly.
you would have with, say, Shrek.
Yeah, or SpongeBob or something like that, you know. And it's really self-evident because it's just so charming and like you said, crazy. There's an animation historian, John Alberto Bendazzi. Do you know? Did you ever hear?
No.
He wrote a world history on animation. I find him so useful because even when you mentioned Bretislav, I just check animation, and he actually called Bretislav one of the greatest animators of all time.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see how good this guy is at portraying emotion essentially on screen, because that's what storytelling is to me, anyways. You know.
But also, I like one thing about Bretislav is he didn't feel limited by the methods of production either.
Awesome.
Because he jumped around between whatever style would work. So it's like,
it's very hard to catalog as an
kind of,
auteur. It's like, what's his style? Well, everything. You know?
But it's because you often get it with, say, a lot of directors that the style becomes a crutch.
Yes. Yeah.
Like Wes Anderson, very much. I think at the moment he's very restrictive. And like I've talked to like a few of the people that have worked with him, and just even seeing interviews online and stuff like that. And it's very much like he is just trying to represent what he sees, rather than it being like a collaboration.
Yes, yeah.
Especially with him maybe not being an animator, as well. That you would think he would be a bit more open to animators bringing something to the table, but largely he's restricting them. And like in a feature film, you don't really have that capacity to like micromanage people's performances the same. When it takes them like a week to do a 5-second scene, you can really like needlepoint going, no, at 22 frames they need to be hitting this mark now. Versus in the live action film where you have like Owen Wilson standing there and he's only available for like 3 or 4 hours before he has to shoot off somewhere else
and say wow somewhere else.
Just wow.
Wow.
Yeah, like some directors, they work when limitations are put upon them, because they can maybe lean towards a certain. I mean, I don't throw around the phrase megalomania too much, but in terms of it being like an egocentric approach to production, like the whole auteur thing it's a problematic expression of how actual films are made. And I think Bretislav, from everything I've read about him, he always worked with people, and he'd bring in screenwriters to work with him.
Wow.
There's a certain amount of like collaboration that you see in his work that he was a little bit informed by who he's working with. So that they would bring a certain amount, and that would lead to what the style of the film was. So that's one reason why his films were quite interesting and different looking.
That's actually a good point, because you can see that malleability on every level then. Even not just in the characters changing shape, but obviously his movies or his shorts changing shape every time. I think Sergei Eisenstein said it about Disney, that he was so fascinated by how back in the day all like the characters were just so elastic. Like you can see it in the early Disney shorts, how their limbs move and they morph into different things.
There's that 4/4 rhythm where they're all hidden.
But even like the Fleischer brothers, early stuff with Coco the Clown, and how, you know, he changed form a lot, or even Felix the Cat and stuff like that. That it's kind of an art that's really been lost, I think, anyways.
Well, in the mainstream, perhaps, we still have Transformers. You know, Michael Bay keeping that alive, keeping that art going. Bless his cotton socks. There are like animators around, like Caleb Wood, who he's like, his stuff is so good. Because he's very iconoclastic in terms of he'll just try something and really just put man-hours into it. Like Goodbye Rabbit Hop Hop is like such a good film, and it's so plastic in terms of how he's animated the rabbit. If you look at the still frame, it's like, is that even a rabbit? But just the characterization in the movement is so perfect. It's just the energy is there. And like you have it in like other places as well, like in a lot of games now. There's a lot more kind of inventive like characterization that. I feel like a lot of people that are, say, not suited to the animation industry, they're more going into games because they can see that, well, I can have an influence here. Because each game needs to look different almost to get a little bit of profile, unless it's like a AAA game, in which case they're just like verisimilitude chasers. While in animation, it's very reductive for feature work anyways.
Yeah.
Like they're all more or less going towards that like 0 point sum of
It's very
similarity.
Similar style. I did bring it. I made a video about Aardman animation and how they're. It took me so long to research it because they just don't talk about the Aardman style because in their heads it doesn't exist, but it's what people love about Aardman. So they just kind of filter it in, but always morph it. I think Nick Park is the only one that doesn't really change his overbite, you know, eyes smashed together kind of thing, big broad smile. I was talking about how just taking 4 feature films of that year, things like Coco, Ferdinand, Boss Baby, and
that
Storks.
famous adaptation of that restaurant on Capel Street.
All very famous. I don't know how they got a whole story out of that. And Storks, but all the characters, you could actually just put them all in the same movie visually in a design style. And I'm not saying that the design is bad, but you're right, it's a 0 point sum. It's just filtering toward that kind of
and it's a little bit of like there's an executive. There's money involved.
Of course,
They're trying to like narrow down risks. And there's a huge amount of time invested in animation. And you want to make sure people go home on a paycheck because they've given away hours of their lives, you know?
Yeah.
So I completely understand.
Of course, and you can see it in things like Sony Animation where you've got incredible people like Gendy Tartakovsky making, you know, the Hotel Transylvanias, which are incredible work. Then you've got things like the Emoji Movie, which you can just see cash thrown at. But also all those animators made Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse as well. So the talent is there and the desire is always there.
Just give them the choice.
Yeah, and the direction as well, you know.
Because they were insulated a lot by Miller and Lord. In terms of, even though they weren't the directors of the project, they really like
let them
they were the midwife for it, you know. And it's important to have those kind of guardians or custodians of the craft a little bit. Yeah. Like I was reading a bit with Winsor McKay the other day, who's like a 1910s.
Gertie the dinosaur.
Yeah, he was like a pioneer of animation. And he was giving out about how animation was an art form. It was not an industry, and you were all cowards, basically. He was cursing them. This is like in the 1930s, I think. Yeah. He was drunk off his mind.
He'd had his day. At that stage.
Well, he was still pretty going, but there's a certain kind of attitude that, like the likes of Bob Iger and Michael Eisner. Like Eisner was famous for saying that animation is not an art. We do not like seek to produce art, but just sometimes when in the pursuit of making a sellable project, we will accidentally make art and history. You know, it was like he was acknowledging that sometimes it gets past me. But it's not really what I'm aiming for. And like Iger is of a similar mentality. He's just a little bit smarter where he's investing his money and buying everything.
Everything is right. Let me ask you then, Paper Panther.
That's the next thing.
Opposite of
the buyout is coming. We're gonna be sending them a check in the post any time. Iger can't refuse it. €20, please.
Yeah, I'll take all of Pixar and all your animation studios. But Paper Panther then is obviously very the opposite of that. Like you guys, like when it comes to productions and stuff, where do you seek your funding for that? Just wherever you can.
Basically, we're no holds barred. We have turned down jobs in the past because of just not agreeing with
that's awesome
the background of the funding or even
blood money
like the location of the producers, you know, just based on conflicts of politics. So we largely try to work with fairly sustainable companies like and just be a bit more sensible in terms of how we're choosing to exercise our craft in terms of promoting anything. We've largely Screen Ireland, the Irish Film Board are now called. They've been very good at funding us. So they funded An Garda, Pork's film, which is like a 9-minute long cutout, black and white, set in the west of Ireland film about a man slowly losing his mind while living with his demented father.
Sounds like a great Irish fable.
Set in 1910s. It's Oscuelga as well.
Oh, wow,
so they've been very, very good and supportive of that project, which sounds like a wild, a wild ride for anyone. And then also with Carol Freeman, like the other director, her project, The Bird and the Whale,
which is just stunning. Genuinely is stunning. I saw it at Diff this year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I was, well, I knew it was going to be, so I was like, okay, that's how I'm going to finally see it. You know? And it was just so beautiful to look at. And of course, the question always came like, how many paintings did it take? You know, something like 7,000 or something like that, or so many. You're rolling your eyes. Do you remember them all?
It's more like you almost want to quantify how many planes of glass that we had to clean. Like, again, coming from our background in different styles, I would do a lot of kind of 2D animation and more like digital pipeline stuff. Yeah. But I'll also do sculpting, or I do, I kind of would try my hand at anything. So generally, I'm the problem solver. Yeah. So one thing with Carol's film is I kind of bring it into a little bit of why I find Bretislav Pojar's work so interesting, is because he's planning stuff and he's incorporating different techniques of animation to aid in the production. Yeah. So there's no reason not to like make your life easier. Yeah. So we basically planned all of Carol's film in 2D. Yeah. So that would take the load of actual animation under the camera, painting oil on glass every frame off the back of the painters. Yeah. Because that was something we were conscious of, that trying to get people who were able to paint and also able to animate live under the camera is a tricky thing. Yeah. And we're very fortunate to have Kieran Owen, Svetlana Sobchenko, Katy Sherriff, and Caitlin Rook, who was like a fine art painter. Yeah. So she's not an animator. Yeah. But she like did so much great stuff with it. And like overall the team are like amazing.
It's not something like you'd think about, but it's really suited for an ocean storm. Oil painting on glass. It's just whatever way the colors blend, you know.
There's a viscosity to it. Yeah.
Oh, it's just so beautiful.
Like you see it a lot in Petrov's work, like Alexander Petrov. Yeah. With like The Old Man in the Sea, and even like his later ones, like My Love, where he uses it a little bit for transformation. Yeah. But the one thing that always griped me about his stuff was that it was like not particularly fluid. If you know what I mean, because it's a ridiculous way to make a film anyways. Why would you make your life harder? So lo and behold, enter Paper Panther. We make our lives as hard as possible.
With every iteration of the next movie you're gonna make while the building's on fire around you.
Oh yeah. There's always a chapter in every company, every artist's book called The Fire. We're just waiting for it to happen.
Let me ask you one question. How often then, I know you've referenced Bretislav Pojar there in regards to how you think about creating animation. How often do you bring that into your own work consistently?
Well, I am very lazy. So
it doesn't, I'm going to say this now, it doesn't look that way at all. You're just constantly on someone's project, you know, drawing.
I mean, in terms of, I will do as much work as possible. Yeah. Or in pursuit of doing less work.
Okay. So that's a smart way of working.
Well, it just means you're doing a lot of work, and then you're like, oh, I guess I end up doing more work than if I just did it the long way around. But anyways, but I mean, in terms of working smartly, not hard. Yeah, if you know what I mean, working smart, not hard. Like trying to come up with a solution that's maybe less literal. Yeah, but still as impactful. So like even like say with Porik's project, figuring out ways that we can work with smaller scale or wider shots. It's like, we'll just build really tiny puppets. Yeah. And because they're really awkward to animate, coincidentally in those shots, they don't need to animate very much. And it's more about the scenario and like the landscape. And even with, say, the current project I'm doing, which is like a 15-second ident for Adult Swim for Rick and Morty. Yeah. So Porik is doing one as well. And he's... Porik is we've produced some animations for the Cartoon Saloon before as well, and TG Carr. So Porik did one with Cartoon Saloon, and it was it's based on Raftery, which is he was like a traveling bard, based in around Mayo that would travel around the country. I think he was blind, syphilitic. He's a character by all means. So, but Porik he approached a really geometric style, kind of bringing it back to what he did in Rooster, only now doing it under the camera. So there's lots of transformations, lots of morphing. So in a similar way for his Rick and Morty one, he's doing like an 8-bit short, but 8 bits in cardboard.
Wow. Because I know Paul Robertson did an 8-bit.
Yeah.
Really incredible stuff.
Really dense as well.
Yeah, really dense is the word.
Yeah. But he's quite clever at doing loops though.
Yes, yeah.
So he'll use his time, and he'll have like because you need to watch it a few times before you even see what's going on.
Yeah.
So, but so for my Rick and Morty one, I'm making like a kaiju battle in the city.
Oh, is that what your puppets are for?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So it's like Rickatron 3000 fighting like Kamatoro.
Wow,
It's like a tiger turtle. And yeah, just trying to be as simple as possible, knowing that I can't do like full scale puppets. So I'm working like at what, half scale?
Yeah.
So they're about like 9 inches tall or so.
Okay, yeah.
A little bit less actually, like 18 centimeters.
Yeah.
So about 7 inches tall. And that means the whole world can be a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
So I don't have to build a huge city.
Yeah.
But still, I'm building a huge city. I had Kieran Nolan and Jason Watts working on that with me, and again, they did really lovely work. And I'm like, I just wish I could pay them more.
You know, but sometimes people just do it for the love of it. You know.
Yeah. Well, they still get paid.
Yeah.
So, you know, as long as they still get paid. You know.
Yeah. Well, that is true. Yeah. Listen, Evan, I really appreciate it. You're so gracious with your time,
No problem.
your energy, and your knowledge of the craft. Obviously, with all your workshops and everything as well. If anyone wants to check out Evan's work, I'd probably say your Vimeo account is a good one.
Yeah, you can still see, like, we're still doing workshops. Porrick is uploading as we speak, probably like 8 or 9 workshop videos.
Wow, yeah. You guys just don't stop.
we started doing a collaboration with Women's Prison as well.
Wow,
which is a really interesting way of getting them involved in storytelling. And, and they're loving the classes. Like Kira Nolan that works with us is hosting the workshops.
Okay, amazing.
So it's just really nice to see like how different voices can be brought to the screen, and the workshops allow us to see that and make that happen. So
it's a really good playground for you guys to figure stuff out.
Well, we kind of know more or less the limits of what can be done in a workshop now, but definitely there's always people that surprise you. Like we've had so Katy Sherriff that works with us now, she did our first workshop with us, like our first film school workshop that we did in Tinahely like 8 years ago when she was 15, 16.
Wow.
And then she arrived into college. I teach in the college in Dunleary as well. So I arrived into college and first she was like, I remember you. And she was like, I don't remember you. Mortified. Like, but yeah, she started working with us then over the last two and a half years. Yeah. So you never know who you're going to end up working with.
Who's going to crack in and say hello next time.
And who might be your boss one day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Oh, that's also a big lesson, but for another day. You know, who might be your boss?
It goes both ways. She could be our boss someday. Who's to say?
And vice versa. But anyways, listen, I really love talking about Pojd'te Pane. If you guys want to check out Bretislav Pojar's work, it's very easy to find online, mainly in Czech. But the best thing is a lot of his stuff, you can just pick it up anyways. The characterization is so vivid and clear, you actually don't even need subtitles. I think that would distract you probably.
Yeah, it's almost a bit redundant.
Yeah. But Evan, thank you so much for kicking us in today. All right.